Yeah, this is the most excited I've been for a review in a long time. Let's talk about Mindhunter. What is up, Netflix fans, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about the show that I have been waiting on to come back for such a long time. It is Season 2 of Mindhunter, one of my favorite directors, David Fincher, tackling a television show, and one of the more interesting I have ever seen. We are going to talk about Season 2 today. I need you in the comments section. Have you seen this show? If you haven't seen it, stop what you're doing, turn off this video, and go watch Mindhunter. We're not going to dive too deep into spoilers, but I want to tell you guys how much I love this show. Let's get into it. So, set in the late 1970s, two FBI agents are tasked with interviewing serial killers to solve open cases. Yes. Let's talk about Mindhunter, guys. I am so pumped because I'm the world's biggest fan of Season 1. Like, I loved everything that this show represents. It's a psychological study of criminals, yes, absolutely, but it's also a showcase of pure acting and directing talent. And although David Fincher doesn't direct every single episode, his craft and his skill set can be seen in each and every episode, from the score to the filmmaking to the cinematography. Everything about this works. There was nothing in Season 1 that I took major issue with, other than maybe a few moments where the story slows down, and those moments do kind of return in this season. There are one or two times when I'm like, can we speed the story up? And after we get to meet a certain character that I'll talk about here in just a second, such an exciting sequence of events, it does slow down, I think, a bit too much in episode 6 and 7. It is kind of setting up what's going to happen in the final two episodes. And there were moments that had me starting to put the moving too slow stigma on one of my favorite shows on Netflix. And I don't like doing that, but I will admit it happened a few times in this season. That's about it. I mean, otherwise, I loved everything about this season. I loved it so much. And it really delivered on what I wanted it to deliver on. One, bringing back the story from Season 1, continuing on all of those storylines, except fleshing out our characters even more. It picks right back up from Holden's breakdown at the end of episode 10 of last season, and we pick right back up with him after his breakdown, and he's kind of suffering from PTSD in this season. He went through a very traumatic experience, and when he encountered Kemper at the main end, he didn't technically almost die, but in his mind, he came as close to death as you possibly could through the man who considers him to be a friend. And when Kemper pops up in this season, my favorite actor performance from Season 1 was his performance. I think it was a crime that he didn't get nominated for any kind of Emmy, and really the show in general, but he returns briefly in this season, and his presence is felt, and anytime he's on screen, he's incredible. But Holden really is the character that we followed along with the main character in Season 1. In Season 2, I think it's dispersed a bit more. While Holden is still kind of at the forefront, we get more time with Bill in this season, exploring a storyline, kind of focusing in on his family life and tragedies that begin to arise from situations that his family members may get themselves into, kind of going along with what we learned about them in Season 1. And that is a storyline that I was not expecting at all. Everything with Bill and his family, it took up a pretty large chunk of this season. And I love how this season, you have your main storyline, what everyone or who everyone is going after throughout the entire season, but there are also these storylines happening in the background, whether it's Bill's storyline with his family or Wendy's storyline. Now, in Season 1, we got to explore a relationship with Holden and how he just could not keep up with it because he let work get in the way. We're kind of experiencing a similar thing with a different personality in Wendy's character here. And of course, at this point in time, and really this time period in general, she doesn't really want her relationship getting out to others. It's a hard thing to deal with, especially where you are and when you are. And that's another thing that I loved about all three of our main characters. Each one has a secret. Holden had secrets in Season 1, Bill and Wendy have secrets in Season 2, and they all kind of keep those secrets from each other until they start to become overwhelming, and that's when they begin to share their stories. But it feels like Holden in this season is kind of the odd man out, and he always has been. And I love, and it happens again in Season 2, when he gets in group conversations, or there's one moment when he's giving a speech in Season 2, and he's just the most awkward human being. He's smart. But he's a smart guy that we all know, and he just keeps talking, and he's talking about smart things, and we kind of understand what he's saying, but not really, and we're just like, Holden, shut up, man. Quit talking as much as you're actually talking. You're passionate about it. And he's very passionate about what he does. We saw him develop that all through season 1. And he really is kind of an expert on the subject at this point. They all three are. And they're all coming together to solve things that actually happen. And that's what Mindhunter is all about. It's taking moments, instances, characters from history, and it's peeling back the layers of their brain, trying to discover the motivations behind why they did what they did, and just the disgusting nature of how they went about murdering these individuals, whether it is Kemper or Charles Manson. And this is the one that I really want to talk about. My goodness. And we were all anticipating it. We were waiting on it. When we saw that trailer, it showed him walking in, but we didn't actually get a glimpse at what he's going to look like. We kind of knew what he was going to look like because it's the same actor that plays Charles Manson in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, except here, he's a bit older. But man, let me tell you, I love Kemper's performance in season 1, and I'm not going to say this performance is better, but just the brief moment that we get to spend with him in episode 5, that alone, to me, is one of the more exquisite performances I've seen, just because it's so accurate. And yes, the look is there, but he could have came in and delivered dialogue in kind of a wonky way, and it is in a wonky way, but it's in a Charles Manson way. Everything I've ever seen from the Madman in interviews and tape and whatnot, he nailed it. He absolutely nailed it, from the mannerisms to the pronunciations. It's ridiculous. This actor, Damon Harriman, dude, you're awesome. I mean, you are fantastic as Charles Manson, really, but just as an actor, to embody someone like that, you have to do the research, you have to get everything down pat, and he did. And that conversation between he and Bill and Holden, it's the first time we really see Bill, and he's dealing with a lot this season, a lot with his family, a lot going on that he doesn't even want Holden to know about, but that's the moment when we really saw Bill break, not spoiling how or why or what exactly he did, but we really see his emotions start to get to him. And I get it, you're interviewing Charles Manson, it's a hard thing to do without breaking, but that conversation just between the two of those, I was blown away with how good the acting was and just the directing of that scene alone, making him feel as small as he is, stature-wise, making him feel like he's the biggest person in the room, the most terrifying person in the room. And that's another thing I love about season 2, and just really the show in general. It handles intensity in such a well-crafted way that we don't see very often on television. It's one of the scariest shows I've ever seen. But I don't mean scary in the sense of, oh, there's a jump scare here, and it's horrifying because there's demons and monsters. And in a way, some of these individuals are just as bad as demons and monsters, but it's because they're hurting innocent women. They're murdering children. And this show, it doesn't tiptoe around what they actually do, because sometimes it will show you, whether it's in picture form or you see a dead corpse on the ground. Sometimes it will tell you, they will go into detail on how they killed the individual, what they did to the individual after they killed them, whether it's a decapitation, whether it is doing horrible things to their body after they are dead. David Fincher does not care what we think about how grotesque these situations were. He is going to tell us all of the information we need to be angry, as upset as our team, and to understand why they're doing this. They're not doing this because they have some kind of sick fetish like the people that they are interviewing. They are doing this because they want to get the information out there, and they want to discover what it truly means to be a serial killer. That's why Mindhunter is so incredible, and it doesn't care if it showcases a ton of action. It's not a cop drama. They're not pulling out their gun every 5 seconds. I don't want that in a show like this. What I want is I want to see interviews with crazy people, with madmen, and we get that all throughout this season, and we get accurate casting in terms of personality of these true individuals. And just the look at this picture. This is one of the characters that they interviewed in this season. The guy on the left is the real life version. The guy on the right is the actor. They don't just cast someone because they're famous. David Fincher isn't going to do that. They find the perfect person for this character, and they have done that all throughout the series, and it feels like every interview. There hasn't been one performance that I've taken issue with in this entire series. seasons 1 and season 2. And it's really hard to do that because there are so many interviews and there are so many characters and there are so many other police officers and detectives and people that are coming in and bringing them new cases that they have to take a look at. And I've not even talked about how things are changing, how the BSU is under new management now. Shepard is gone. Well, he's not gone just yet. He does have a retirement party of such, and it's not a huge spoiler. It happens in the first 20 minutes of the first episode, so I don't want to go into too much more detail, but we do get someone new coming in, and they're more on the side of Holden, and it adds even more between the dynamic of the team. We also have our character of Greg returning, and what went down at the end of season 1 when the tape was submitted and nobody really knew who did it. That storyline is not left by the wayside. They explore that, and there are many conversations to be had about the end of season 1, but season 2, like I said, it brings us a new storyline, a new case to solve, and really going down a difficult path to dive into because we're tackling race in this season. We're tackling religion a bit more. We have new people on the case to join our team. Agent Jim Barney is one of them, and he brings an interesting dynamic to this because he goes about solving problems in a different way from the team. Every character that comes in, and really every person involved with this show in general, I've talked about the story, I've talked about the filmmaking, the color correction is gorgeous, and really, back to the cinematography, I mean, there are some shots in this season where I'm just sitting back going, why is this so good, and why are more people not talking about this show? Now, I know people are talking about it, and I know people who love Mindhunter, but not enough for me, man. This is one of the best shows. It's one of my favorite shows ever. It really is. And it might actually be my favorite show on Netflix. And season 2, the quality still being way up here kind of confirms that to me. I wanted it to keep the consistency with this season compared to the last season. And it absolutely did. And I've heard the question go around multiple times, who's the guy that they keep going back to in Kansas? They did it in season 1 and now they're doing it again in season 2. Are they ever going to pick up on this storyline? I find it such an interesting thing that Fincher is doing with this show because it really has nothing to do with our main storyline, but then it has everything to do with our main storyline, and that is actually Dennis, I believe, Rader, known as the BTK, the Blind Torture Killer. He's a man that commits 10 murders between 1974 and 1991 in Wichita, Kansas. The man was not apprehended until 2005. So this is a storyline that we're just going to keep flashing back to, and everything that our team talks about throughout this series kind of has to do with that storyline progression. It's showing the madness in a man who is strategic, methodical, but also insane at the same time, and we see that in this season progress a bit further, and all of this, and I hate to say it's enjoyable, but from a filmmaking standpoint, from a pure entertainment standpoint, and just the fact that this show is so fascinating for me. It is exciting for me, but for some it may not be exciting. For some it may be boring. For others it may be too much. For me, Mindhunter is one of the best shows I've ever seen. Fincher did not direct every single episode in seasons 1 and 2. He directs multiple episodes though, and he oversees the entire thing. A quick shout out to other directors from this season, Andrew Dominic and Carl Franklin. Just a phenomenal job all around, and I can't stop talking about this show, guys. I love it so much. I'm giving Mindhunter Season 2 a 98%. One of the more fascinating things I've watched all year. It might be one of my favorite seasons of television. Maybe I'm biased because I love this show so much, and I just love Fincher's vision, and this, for me, might be one of the best things David Fincher has ever done, and I've not even talked about the ending and what we get into there. You know, I may talk about it a bit more. I might do a special video on Patreon. If you guys are following me on there, I'll do something special for the lower tier, but guys, I love Mindhunter so much, and I'm encouraged. I want to see what you guys think of it in the comments down below. Please leave your thoughts. Talk about this show. Talk about all things happening on Netflix. You guys are the absolute best, and we're not done with David Fincher this weekend. Coming very soon, I'm doing another tier list, and I may or may not be talking about all of his films. I'm rewatching some just to get prepared for that, but until then, you guys are the absolute best, and I'll see you very soon.